Blink-182's album Neighborhoods has rightfully undergone a bit of a reevaluation over the last few years. At one point, claiming that it was a good album was indeed an unpopular opinion. Now, I hate to break it to you, you are not special for saying, Neighborhoods is good, actually. This album came out when Blink-182 was my favorite band. Really, it came out before I even knew that bad music existed. It was also either the first or second album that I ever bought with my own money on iTunes. But I remember reading bad reviews of this album back then and getting a little self-conscious that apparently I liked bad music. Now, over 10 years later, I think that the harsher critics, the ones who don't care for this type of music anyways, and were only reviewing Neighborhoods because Blink-182 were an iconic band, have moved on, and they no longer contribute to the conversation around Neighborhoods. So you're left with the fan pages, the YouTubers, and superfans going, hey, does anyone else think that Neighborhood's good? My younger self, the one who liked Neighborhoods from the start, feels vindicated by that. My younger self might also be surprised, though, that Neighborhoods doesn't even crack the top 3 or 4 of my favorite Blink-182 albums anymore. And you might say that I've soured on this album just because I liked it so much on release. And over the years, even though I still like Neighborhoods, I've come down from an unhealthy obsession with it and into a slightly more rational opinion on it. It's good, but it's no masterpiece. But clearly I saw something in Neighborhoods back then, so I want to dig in a little bit. What did I love about it then? What do I love about it now? And does it really deserve to be considered an underrated gem? Also, I'm talking about the deluxe version, which I consider the actual version of this album. I was in my early teens when this album came out, at the height of my nobody understands me phase. What I craved from my music back then were moody cuts, tragic lyrics, and melodrama. Naturally, I was obsessed with the Goo Goo Dolls and their dramatic emotional songs like Black Balloon and Iris, so keeping that in mind, it makes sense why a song like Ghost on the Dance Floor was a favorite of mine on Neighborhoods. If I squint real hard, it reminds me of a Goo Goo Dolls track. Although I still like Take Off Your Pants and Jacket and Enema in 2011, Neighborhoods represented what I thought of myself back then. Leave the silliness and goofiness at the door. I wanted to be overly serious. Enter Neighborhoods. It built upon Untitled. It brought in some Angels and Airwaves. Some people wanted that. Some people prefer that. And I sure did back then. I completely understand why there are people that call Neighborhoods peak Blink. I disagree, but I get it. Ghost on the Dance Floor, Natives, After Midnight, Wishing Well all have a special place in my heart. Incredibly solid A-tier Blink songs. MH418 2011, Kaleidoscope, Even If She Falls, Up All Night, Hearts All Gone. All pretty good, but you won't get me to admit that they're anything more than serviceable Blink-182 tracks. What I'm realizing for myself here is that many of the songs on Neighborhoods are perfectly fine on a perfectly fine album. I've seen a lot of people mention that this album sounds disjointed because the band was separated during the recording of this album. Honestly, I would have never guessed that or been able to tell that that was the case with Neighborhoods. What I do notice, though, is how passive the performances are. Listening to Neighborhoods and One More Time back to back is night and day. One More Time has Mark and Tom actually giving a performance through punky deliveries or wacky yodeling. On too much of Neighborhoods, but in particular Mark, sound bored as hell, with obvious exceptions like Hearts All Gone, Natives, or Snake Charmer. It's Travis who is breathing some life and energy in these songs through his drumming, but hey, what else is new? There's plenty of love out there for the more experimental and weird tracks like Fighting the Gravity or Snake Charmer, and while I appreciate that it's different and that they tried something new, it isn't a sound that I want Blink-182 to return to. There's just too much Angels and Airwaves influence, maybe a little too much ambition, maybe a little too much Tom. For me, anyways. I know that people love that about Neighborhoods, and I totally respect that, but they will be hard-pressed to convince many people that this is an overlooked masterpiece, although they might find success in convincing people that it's not quite as bad as they remember. Thanks for joining me in this brief discussion about Neighborhoods. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this album in the comments. Until next time, thanks for watching.